If Tom is a consequentialist, he is obligated to donate as much money as possible to help the poor in order to maximize the overall utility. With so little money left for himself, Tom has to live like a poor man. Many people use this example to criticize consequentialism for being much too demanding on individuals. In fact, this criticism is wrong. Critics do not understand maximizing the overall utility. Maximizing the overall utility determines that Tom's donation must increase the overall utility. Tom cannot donate if his donation reduces the overall utility. If the overall utility remains the same, Tom can donate or not, because none of his choices affect the overall utility. Next, let's analyze whether Tom's donation can increase the overall utility. First, suppose there is a poor person who becomes poor because of laziness and unwillingness to work. If Tom donates money to him, all his income will come from Tom's donations. Is Tom obligated to help this poor person? No. Because Tom's donation is only a transfer of wealth from Tom to the poor person, the total wealth of society does not increase. Since the total wealth of society does not increase, Tom is not obliged to donate money to him. Someone might make a counterargument. Although Tom's donation does not increase the total wealth of society, the overall utility still increases because the marginal utility of the poor man is higher than that of Tom. This view is wrong. The marginal utility of a lazy person is not necessarily higher than Tom's. Taking a step back, even if his marginal utility is higher than Tom's, Tom still can't donate money to him. If Tom donates money to lazy people, it is equivalent to encouraging laziness. What are the disadvantages of encouraging laziness? Surely more and more people are reluctant to work, and they all ask people like Tom to help them. This will lead to a serious decrease in the overall utility. Obviously, there are two factors in donations that affect the overall utility. First, donations increase the utility of the poor. Second, encouraging laziness reduces the utility of those who work hard. We cannot only consider the first and ignore the second. If these two parts are aggregated, will the overall utility increase or decrease? Definitely decrease. Because if it increases, there will be no one working in this world, and everyone will live on donations. Since the overall utility decreases, Tom must not help the lazy poor. However, not all poor people Tom should not help. There is a kind of poor people Tom is obliged to help. Such poor people become poor not because of laziness, but because of an accident. Once someone helps them through temporary difficulties, they will continue to work hard. Such poor people Tom is obliged to help. Because if these people do not get help, they may become poor forever, and a part of the total wealth of society will be lost. If Tom helps them through temporary difficulties, they will continue to work hard, and this part of the total wealth of society will not be lost. Obviously, Tom's help to such poor people can increase the total wealth of society. In addition, helping such poor people is also of great benefit to Tom. First, this help is short-term rather than long-term, which greatly eases Tom's financial burden. Second, after these people get help from Tom, there is a high probability that they will repay Tom, which further eases Tom's financial burden. Obviously, helping such poor people would not burden Tom too much financially. Therefore, the so-called criticism of demandingness is not valid. Obviously, as a consequentialist, Tom is only obliged to help those who experiences temporary difficulties, such as those who lose all their possessions due to natural disasters, such as those who aspire to go to school but cannot afford it. After receiving short-term help, those people can quickly increase the total wealth of society through hard work. And for those who are unwilling to increase the total wealth of society, Tom is not obliged to help them. Except for those with physical disabilities, of course. This type of people is not unwilling to increase the total wealth of society, but is unable to increase. Second, how can consequentialists help the poor abroad? Some people may think that there is no difference between domestic and foreign countries. We can use the same standard. In fact, we cannot use the same standard, because there is another factor that can lead to national poverty at the national level, and this factor is system. If the poverty of the people of a country is caused by a dictatorship, Tom cannot help them. Because in such a country, Tom's donations could not reach the civilians at all. The donations are taken away by the leader. After the leader sees the donations, he does not improve people's livelihood at all, but desperately strengthens the army, and then more frantically oppresses civilians. This leads to the fact that the more donations, the more miserable the civilian becomes. So if Tom donates to such a country, he will not be helping the civilians of this country, but harming the civilians of this country. Finally, critics criticize consequentialism with the example of helping the poor. In the eyes of critics, it seems that the only way to increase the overall utility is to help the poor. In fact, critics make a serious mistake in this regard. Helping the poor is not the only way to increase overall utility. It is precisely because critics see it as the only way so that they come to the wrong conclusion of demandingness. For example, Bill Gates founded Microsoft Corporation in 1975. If we could go back to the day before Bill Gates founded Microsoft, would we ask Bill Gates to donate all his money to help the poor instead of founding Microsoft? Since Microsoft's products have increased amazing utility to the world, I don't think anyone would ask Bill Gates to donate money to help the poor. This means that if Tom is a consequentialist, he doesn't necessarily have to donate money to help the poor. In order to increase the overall utility, Tom's priority should be to invest the money in various companies. Maybe there is a company that will increase amazing utility to the world again in the future, as Microsoft did.